Emily Oster is the author of the book Expecting Better: Why the Conventional Pregnancy Wisdom is Wrong and What You Really Need to Know. Emily, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So I've got to start with the headline since the book came out. It's only been out a short time. And here in Chicago, the Tribune headline was Author Advocates for Moderate Drinking While Pregnant. And that's been the big thing that I think you're going to battle with. There's a lot more information in this book, but okay, let's talk about alcohol and pregnancy.
Yeah, so I think, there's a tremendous amount of evidence that heavy drinking is bad. And something which actually people don't always say, but is definitely true, is that even a few episodes of binge drinking at the wrong time in pregnancy can be really dangerous. And so that's actually something I talk about in the book. But, what I really wondered about, and I think what many women wonder about is not, can I binge drink? But, is it okay to have an occasional glass of wine? What does the evidence really say about that? And I think that curiosity is piqued as well by the fact that, there's actually a lot of disagreement about this among obstetricians. Many people's doctors will tell them, an occasional drink is fine. And so when I came to this, what I wanted to do was just look at the evidence and see, when we look at studies of women who drink in moderation, what do their children's outcomes look like relative to women who abstain? And the answer is, when you find studies like that, their children look just like the children of women who abstain. And you hear in moderation, we really mean no more than 2 drinks a week in the first trimester, no more than a drink a day in later trimesters. And a drink is 4 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of beer. So it's really an argument for moderation. But I think that the data shows that in moderation, alcohol does not have these kind of effects that we see that it certainly does have in excess.
You talk in the book about how a drink is broken down in your body. And when you pour a ton into your body at once, everything can't keep up. It's going to end up into your fetus. But if you drink slowly, you give your liver time, everything breaks down and things don't make it all the way. So does that mean even when I'm drinking my one drink, say, I should sip it instead of all right, I get one drink today. Woo, here we go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it does argue for that. And the more, kind of a drink with food, it's kind of the way I put it in the book is, if you're going to have a glass of wine, have it like a European adult. Don't have a shot of tequila in your, on an empty stomach first thing in the morning or whatever. You should kind of think of this as not an attempt to get wasted, of course, but, this is something many people enjoy with food, and the data
find it
suggests
very
it's
relaxing.
Okay. Yeah,
and
find it relaxing.
Sometimes I would imagine it's not even always the alcohol, but just I'm having a glass of wine, I'm
the
with
routine.
my book or whatever it is, and here's how I relax. Talk about, I want to say an offense you took, but maybe that's completely the wrong word, but when doctors know that, moderation is fine. But they don't tell us that always. Maybe they do sometimes, but some doctors would rather just say, just don't drink. And it seems sensible. Well, you have a baby in there. Why put them at any risk at all? So it's safer to just not drink during pregnancy. But do you feel that doctors seem to judge people and make a snap decision on, I'm just going to tell her you probably shouldn't drink?
I think that there is some of what I refer to as personalized medicine, where doctors are telling some people, who they think can handle it, they're telling them one thing, and then other people they're telling them not. That's a good policy, but it assumes that you understand, that your doctor has a good understanding of you, which sometimes they do, and maybe sometimes they don't. I also think there's just in general, and this has actually come up, don't talk at all about this in the book, it's come up a lot when I've talked to people subsequent to the publication, this issue of litigation and doctors being very worried that if they tell people something and then something happens later, even if it is unrelated to this, that they will be in trouble. And that's obviously not an issue I face in writing this, but it is an issue that your doctor faces. And I think that's just a complication I had not thought much about.
Well, and that would make sense. I mean, it's a very litigious society.
Yes.
In the book, you wrote, this issue that doctors constantly mention to me, that women wouldn't be able to stop at just one, comes up less in other countries. Doctors here consistently mentioned to you that they didn't believe women would be able to stop at just one?
I was on the very early when this book came out, I was on TV with someone, and she said, I absolutely agree that 1 drink a day is fine, but I caution women about having that because then they'll relax and have 2 or 3. And I was sort of I mean, again, maybe that is true for some women, and I think it's worth having the conversation. Are you the kind of person who can't stop at 1? But I think that there are many women out there who are able to have a glass of wine and stop at 1. And I think to assume that somehow ladies can't do that seems a little bit patronizing to me. I mean, I think if men were pregnant, we would not say that, even though
because
maybe
men
that's
would be
not
the same way. No, totally.
Yeah.
You're right. And that I mean, they talk a lot about breast cancer versus prostate cancer and the things that get more because men,
exactly.
whatever still. Was it all male doctors?
No, this was a woman. I almost always do interact with women. I mean, so it isn't exactly a gendered thing,
but I think
thing
necessarily, but it is an image thing that we just have cultivated.
Yeah, it's a little hard for me to see, but I think there is a lot of, when we're talking about pregnancy, a lot of this kind of is sort of infantilizing and like, don't worry your silly little head about that. And even, from female doctors, this is not a comment about the patriarchy. I think it's more of a comment about our interactions with at least some people in the medical system. And that's certainly not true of all doctors. There are plenty of like doctors out there who will tell you, I want you to think through this, like, let's talk about this together. But I think that certainly I have heard from a lot of women who have had interactions, which
and how well do you know your OBGYN? I mean, how you see them maybe once a year generally, so it's not like you've developed this great relationship where they really know you and know what you're like, so it's tough for them. I mean, is it litigiousness? Is it they're just looking out for the baby? And of course, this is a toxin. You are putting a toxin in your body when you're putting alcohol in, so just avoid it for 9 months. Where do you think it's...
Yeah, I think it comes from that. I think it comes from the fact that like we only have 4 minutes. You got like 4 minutes once a month to talk to this person.
Right.
There's a lot of material to get through. Like people want people to understand there's a baby. Here are like some places. Here's where it's going to come out of. There's like a lot of stuff you actually have to do in that time. And I think that having like a detailed, nuanced conversation about decisions and choices and so on is often lacking. And I think it's particularly hard in cases in which there is nuance to the data, and in which a lot of what I'm trying to do in this book is sort of say, look, I'm trained in statistics and figuring out what's a good study, what's not a good study, and going through all of that in the time you have with your doctor seems to me to be totally infeasible.
Speaking of only having 4 minutes, we're out of time. The book is Expecting Better by Emily Oster. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.